Okay, this is Tony from North Carolina. You are live on the air. Go right ahead with your question, Tony.
Just a couple of comments. The subject of the two thieves on the cross with Jesus, he never mentions that line that, today you will be with me in paradise. It'd be nice if you kind of mentioned that there's a big possibility that the original Greek, because it doesn't contain punctuation, that they put the comma in the wrong place, and it should read, today I tell you, comma, you will be with me in paradise, which makes that whole line completely different. The other thing was with the Sermon on the Mount with Jesus, and he talks about adultery, and he's basically saying, to my mind anyways, where you have the letter of the law and you have the spirit of the law, he says, you heard it said that thou shalt not commit adultery, but I tell you, if you look at a woman with lust in your eye, you've already committed adultery in your heart. In your heart is not actually physically committing adultery. So the letter of the law will be, physically doing it, but he's teaching the spirit of law, whereas don't even put yourself in that position where you might be tempted to commit adultery, which I find completely in line with Judaism and the way we look at God's word and laws.
Sure. So go ahead and hang up now and tune in for your answers. Thank you for your call. The first one I thought was the most important one, where he said today, well, not the most important, but one of them was said today, comma, you will be with me in paradise, saying he's telling him, today I'm telling you this. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Right. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So you have famously in the Passion narratives, you have a famous contradiction in that in Matthew, as an example, the two criminals that are crucified with Jesus, they don't believe in him, but in the book of Luke, you have one of them who goes into a whole explanation that, we're here, because we had it coming to us, but this man has done nothing. That's the context. This man's done nothing. So this person confesses on the cross. All the translators render this as he said to him, truly, I say to you, today you'll be with me in paradise. And I'm not aware of many translations. I didn't do a lot of it. I'm not aware of any translations that do this differently. I'm not saying there isn't, but if you go to the King James, the NIV, the ESV, the American Standard, they all translate it that way. I think there may have been some who've suggested what you're saying for a different reason. So can the text be altered to not convey that? So you would have to really work at it to do that. But why would someone work it to sort of render it the way you've rendered it is because there was a tradition that developed in the church that, in fact, Jesus spent 3 days in hell, right? So that comes up in Christian theology and Christian thought and Christian art and literature. But that does not mesh well with Luke 23:43. Yeah, that's the Passion narrative. So what happened is that there were Christian thinkers that, well, what are we going to do with this text? Because if he was in the bowels of hell, which was incidentally very common, not just in Christianity, but in many other religions where sort of the gods go into the pit of hell. I talk about this in Volume 1, Let's Get Biblical. I'll give examples from ancient Greco-Roman literature where a god goes into the pit of hell to rescue someone who was innocently killed. Got it? So what happens is because of the tradition develops in the church that Jesus went to hell for those 3 days, it does not comport with Luke, and therefore Luke 23:43 is altered. Okay, so that's where that comes from. Then you said you were referring to the antitheses. So the antitheses come up rather quickly in the Sermon on the Mount. Sermon on the Mount begins with the Beatitudes in Matthew 5. The Sermon on the Mount continues all the way through Matthew 7. So you have the Beatitudes, and then you have Jesus exclaiming that he didn't come to change the law, to break the law, to fulfill the law. And anyone who changes any part of the law we consider least in the kingdom of heaven, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the Pharisees and scribes, you can't enter heaven, which there he's conceding. It's many places, just as a footnote here, there you see that the author of Matthew definitely believed in the oral Torah because the Pharisees are the gold standard. but that's not your point. Then you go into the antitheses. The antitheses is what you're quoting from, and that's Matthew 5 from verse 21 through 48. You have quite a chunk where it's you have heard, but I say unto you, and you have 6 antitheses, 6 of them. The key point is that the antitheses are conveying the following. You have heard this. And when he's saying you have heard this, he's saying this is what was said at Mount Sinai. This is what you've heard from Moses. But Jesus is being portrayed here as an uber Moses. That's very important. In fact, while we find a great deal of the Sermon of the Mount in Luke, in a spread differently in different parts of Luke. It's not chunked together as you have in Matthew. So you have Beatitudes, you have many of these things in Luke, you do. However, it's never on a mountain in the book of Luke. In fact, Jesus is speaking on the plains. So why is Jesus speaking from a mountain? Well, this is very transparent. Why does Jesus have to go to Egypt? Because the Jews went down to Egypt. Why does he on a mountain? Because the Jews received the Torah at Mount Sinai. So it's a uber Moses. This is completely an M source, this feature, and that is to present Jesus as above Moses. Moses said this, and after all, he gave the law from the mountain. There's of the other 3 Gospels, Jesus is not talking from mountains. That you won't find that. This doesn't exist. And Luke, as I said, is from a plain, not from a mountain. So it's very clear what's in view. He's saying, you heard this, but I am saying this. So we take this as plain view. I'll select the one that you selected, and that is, you have heard that if you sleep with a woman, so then you've committed adultery. I say to you, even if you feel lust in your heart, you've already committed adultery. If you look upon a woman with lust, you committed adultery. So it's really quite the reverse. And in that, if a woman goes to a convention in Las Vegas because of a business, so there's a big convention, and she sees a fellow, he's married, she's married, right? And he's flirting with her, and he's quite the handsome fellow, and she knows that whatever goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas, and she really likes to sleep with this fellow, right? But she says, you know what? The God of Israel said that don't commit adultery. So she resists the temptation. Or a man, he goes there, and he really would like to be with that girl, and she definitely likes him. So he likes her, and she's very attractive, but he doesn't. And he does it because the God of Israel said it's forbidden. So therefore, that person is greater. Who's greater? The person who feels the temptation but resists the temptation, or the person who doesn't feel any temptation? I'll tell you something very interesting. We find this theme is not alone, cannot be segregated to this part alone. This kind of thing that doesn't make any sense, we find in different ways present us in the New Testament. For instance, Jesus being tempted in the wilderness for 40 days by the devil. This only appears in the Synoptic Gospels. But the question is, when Jesus was tempted, could he have sinned? The answer is no. Christians will say no. Well, if he couldn't sin, then what's the temptation? So this is all very convoluted. And this is very much in line with this kind of thinking that the material world is all evil, it's all wicked, and the Son of God, of course, never experienced temptation. Well, you never experienced temptation. What's the story of the temptation? The whole thing's a sham. So just know this. The person that is tempted to sin but resists that temptation, so that person is a much greater person. I'll just end with this. People come over to me frequently and say, Rabbi, thank you. Like, you've been very kind. You said, thank you, Rabbi, for what you do. And they say, and because I've watched your videos with William, I repented of idolatry. I left Christianity and I've become a Jew, or Ben Noah. And thank you so much, Rabbi. They meet me in Jerusalem. They see me wherever it is. And I'm looking at them. I'm very grateful that I know that this work is accomplishing so much, but I'm going, I'm nothing. You were a Christian. You, even though you were very much drawn to idolatry and was in it, you were able to walk away from it, even though you attempted to stay. And you you endured enormous ridicule socially in your family, economically, and on every level. I was never a Christian for 1 second. So understand that, of course, if you wanted a person, you could, if you want to, but you'd be twisting it. Of course, a person should not put themselves in a predicament where you can lose your entire free will. A man goes into some sort of place where everyone, I don't know, in some beach in France, where everyone's walking in no clothes. So person could lose all their free will because you put yourself in such a crazy position. But the man or the woman that resists the temptation, that's the person who's really righteous. And the person who resists it, you can't say you've committed adultery. Can't say that. That's the whole point of the antitheses. It's an uber Moses, that Jesus is giving us something better, a new kind of covenant. And now just the last part, what this does is really a setup, and it's a Pauline setup. We don't usually think about Matthew and Paul working together. Now, they didn't live at the same time, but we don't think of Paul when we think of Matthew. But what the antitheses accomplishes is it then conveys that you can't keep the Torah. You can't keep the law. The law can't save you, because if you felt tempted, meaning you felt lust in your heart, you're already done. That means you already committed adultery. So if that's the case, then Paul is correct. Then no one can do that. You follow? So that's how they link. Strangely, the antitheses that we find in Matthew 5:21 through 48 are linked heavily to Romans chapter 3, 4, 5, and 6, and so on. You follow? Because it then is saying that you can't do it. And if you can't do it, then Paul is saying you can't do it by misquoting a whole slew of passages, particularly in Romans chapter 3. So great questions. Thank you.
Guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go to Rabbi Singer's channel as well, and also don't forget his 2-volume book set, Let's Get Biblicals, volume 1 and 2. The audio files are available, but the CDs are not, but they're available on his website.
The MP3. Let me say, I want to just one other thing for
ahead.
You guys. Listen carefully. Pay no attention to that man. No, listen to me. It's so important. If you believe in the work that William is doing, that we're doing here, whenever you watch any of our videos, please like it and please share it. It's very important because it really affects the algorithm so that our videos are spread around. So really it's very, very important that whenever you see a video of William, a video of mine, it's very important to like it. I hope we like it.
Yeah.
But if you do, don't just pass it. Just make sure you like it and make sure that you subscribe to channels, because it really has a very big impact on spreading Torah throughout the world. It's very, very important. You should really go through our videos and make sure that those videos that you haven't liked yet, you do like them. It really has a very, very big impact on spreading this message. Anyway, shalom.
Yeah. And commenting on them also helps generate views as well, so it kind of refreshes them on the system. So, Rabbi, thank you. Great show, and we'll see you, Hashem willing, same time, same place next week. Shalom, everyone. Bye.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.